Oh, God. Did you eat all this acid?
That's right. Music!
How's it going, guys? SpartaChris here, and I really want to dive into the different spec options that I'm thinking about running here for this upcoming BFA season, and I also want to talk about the different stat stacking and how the Fire Mage remains essentially the same, but some of these micro tunes might really change up the game style. So the first thing I definitely want to talk about is my stat usage. I'm going to go ahead and start prioritizing a different stat. I was having a nice conversation with my buddy Eddie over on their EU, King K and W, and even my buddy Sick Cutie about the differences in some of the Fire Mage things, and how we don't really care about critical strike. And I said that was a very interesting point, where maybe you might want to stack crit haste, or possibly even, you know, mastery crit mastery, etc., where crit really isn't a priority to us, contrary to what you normally run for that passive damage. And the idea behind that is, well, we have guaranteed abilities for crit. We have combustion, we have fire blast, we have phoenix laser. We're going to run that. So why do we bother stacking crit? Yeah, maybe in a PvE scenario, which is definitely something I recommend in a PvE scenario throughout a prolonged boss fight, or even your, you know, chain pulling of trash. That's definitely going to be something you're going to want to do. But in the PvP 3v3 scenario, definitely want to start looking at that haste mastery, and here's why. So with the haste thing as my priority stat, two things come to mind. One, more fireballs, and that means more chances to proc my heating up, one, and two, more fireballs when I'm running fire starter means I'm gonna get that combustion faster, which is guaranteed damage, which is something I definitely want to be looking at. That's how I like to play my mage. I like to do it around guaranteed damage. I like to set up my damage goes for guaranteed damage. The other idea is polymorph, 1.5 second cast. You know, and I've played some Frost and Fire in the off season, and I'll say, with the stack crunch and the lack of haste on this gear, man, it is rough. Getting off that slow poly has got to be the hardest thing I've done, because they have all this time in the world they can decide to kick you. They can kick you early cast, they can kick you mid cast, late cast, 40% cast, 60% cast. It's ridiculous. So haste is doubling up not only to help you get your CC, but also help you get out that damage, take advantage of fire starter. And one very, very important concept here is fire blast. 9.1 second recharge. This reduces as you increase your haste, and that's what's important. As that stuff comes back up for your guaranteed damage, it's going to come back faster. Like 3 charges for me, I'm playing Flame On. That's 9 times. There's 27 seconds that I can get all of my guaranteed damage back. And guess what? When you're in an arena scenario, you're trying to do those setups every 25, 30, 35 seconds. So you save that damage, you put out that guaranteed damage, max damage, max pressure, max effectiveness. So the second thing I want to talk about is why I'm stacking mastery over something like versatility at the moment, which is something I've actually also considered as well, is because of this controlled burn talent. Controlled burn, if you've watched Venruki's video, or even just looked at it yourself, any fire mages coming through here, you've read it yourself, Ignite does that 100% damage over, or does that damage 100% faster. So essentially you're doing 4-second ignites instead of 8 seconds, but it's the same damage, just more DPS. So when it compounds in itself, you're getting more damage per second, even if you're not damaging the target. So when you pump out that good guaranteed damage, you're going to get that good guaranteed ignite with that good guaranteed DPS. So with that controlled burn, I want to be stacking mastery because I want to take full advantage of my ignite. And I'll be honest with you, it's very similar to deep wounds with warriors right now. Is my ignite does a good chunk of my damage. I'd say somewhere floating around that 20% range, and that's with low mastery. I can see myself stacking, you know, possibly 15, 17, 18% mastery, you know, as I get my item level a little bit higher than what it is now. And guess what? My damage is going to go up there. I can see 22, 25% of my damage being part of that ignite. So that's the reason why I'm running those two stats. And that's going to roll right into why I particularly run a couple of these talents that might be a little bit different than what you're seeing the normal ways. So everybody thinks Fire Mage is going to be the same. I agree to an extent. I think it's going to be different in the size of our play styles, because the way that we are going to put out our damage is going to be so important in that 3v3 scenario, because we have not changed the ability to cast while casting, and we have not changed our ability to have good burst, micro burst damage. So first thing I want to talk about is Searing Touch, Pyromaniac. I got off Pyromaniac. I wasn't feeling it. I in a PvE scenario 100% about the Pyromaniac, but in the when you're stacking Critical Strike as well for those passive hot streak procs outside of your instance with your Fireball cast. But in a PvP in a 3 scenario where you're actually not giving the RNG enough time to trigger, I feel like Pyromaniac kind of falls off a little bit as far as its #1 talent, and that has me I start peeping Searing Touch here. Searing Touch, you get a 2.5 or 150% increased damage, guaranteed crit if he's low in that execute area range. And I think that's really, really important, because when we start doing our go, let's say we get our 8 seconds of poly, we get that Hodge or that second polymorph, guess what? He's going to get low. Why? Because your warrior or your rogue is pumping out good damage and you're pumping out good damage. But guess what? You need to use all of your instants to get him there. And there may not necessarily be dead. There could be 15%, 20%, 25% health. Might pull a trinket, might pull cooldowns, might pull astral shift, doesn't matter. He's still not dead. But guess what? With Searing Touch now activated at that less than 30% range, now you can continue that go. Let's say you get a blind from your rogue or fear from your warrior. Guess what? You're going to get those guaranteed procs. And Searing Touch, stacking that haste again. I mean, my haste is low, 10%. I've got a 1.4 second. At 14, 15% haste, I can have this down even faster. So now I'm getting pyros really fast. So I Scorch, Pyro, Scorch, Pyro. And even in that range, I might get 1 Fire Blast back. So I can do Scorch, Fire Blast, Pyro, Scorch, Pyro. So I'm able to also do that while running. And the Scorch damage is not that bad. My Scorch hits for 800, doesn't sound like much. Multiply that by 2.5 times and then Critical Strike it. Now you're looking at decent damage. Now you're looking at that 3k, 50% increased damage in PvP. With the crits, so you're looking at 3k, 3200, etc. So now we're looking at something a little bit more powerful when we compound those together with that Pyroblast, being able to play around that guaranteed damage, which is again how I like to play. Going down here, we look at Shimmer. Obviously a must-have. Might run Blast Wave for double Rogue, but I don't know what kind of cancer that's going to run around with. Incanter's Flow, 20% increased damage flowing around. Everybody knows that. We're not here to talk about the basics. What we're here to talk about is my Flame Onda choice. Probably the most controversial, like Searing Touch could be a playstyle for me. I know it was they replaced that with the Legendary, but I think the most controversial piece is going to be this Phoenix Flames Flame On, because Phoenix Flames at the end of the day is what we've been used to running for all of Legion. And it's powerful, it had its place, but here's why I decide not to run that, or why I'm going to choose not to run that in that early season and possibly the entirety of Season 1 if it comes out the way I expect it to. And that's going to be Phoenix Flames does not have a chance to reduce cooldown. There used to be a passive that would flare it up or something. I forgot how they worded it, but basically it would reduce the cooldown every by 10 seconds. So it's possible when you're pumping out those passive damages that in between goes, you can get 1 or 2 of your Phoenix Flames back way faster than you should have. You don't have that anymore. It's 30 seconds and the damage isn't crazy. My damage hits here 3250 and 3395. So I have hit for a little bit more, 5% more damage, I think 7% more damage. Big whoop, but much longer cooldown. In 1 set of charge of Phoenix Flames, I get all of my charges of Fire Blast back. So I go over here to my Flame On, because now I get my 3 charges back every 30 seconds or less. Probably I'm trying to get this down to about 26-ish seconds. That's kind of my goal right now. Get that 8.6, 8.7 second recharge. But at the same time, if you look, my Phoenix Flames, I jumped to Flame On. I'm down to 9.1 second recharge, reduces the cooldown, but I also start benefiting from haste. So that's the big thing. I'm stacking haste already. Fast polymorphs, not able to get kicked as easily. Fast fireballs, taking advantage of Firestarter. But we're going to compound another reason why it's going to be good, and that's going to be reduced cooldown of Fire Blast, which means we're going to get our guaranteed damage. We're going to get out that comfortable damage pressure output on a regular basis, even quicker than we expect. And that's why I want to run that Flame On. That's a big reason why I'd want to do that. So those two talents together, combined with Ignite and stacking my Mastery, I think is going to make me a formidable foe that isn't as passively damage heavy. But when I get that sheep, when we get that stun, and we get that good output, that good cross CC, or even that good setup, somebody's taken a whole lot of damage in a short amount of time, and that's what I want to do. I want to get those kills. I want to get those cooldowns. So, with those combined, just looking, we could. What I'd like to do is just give you an example of what I run here, looking at this Ignite. So let's say I pump out. No, we won't do combustion. We'll just do something a little basic here. Nice short little setup here. Get out that nice slow, painful fireball. And in just that short range, if you look here, my Ignite damage does about 12%. That's without my combustion, which is where that 20% comes from. And when we're looking at controlled burn coming out, that 12% damage is going to happen to that short range and compound itself, and I think that's going to be a big deal. The other thing I want to just brush up on is how you do your combustion. I got asked a couple of questions once before of how we decide to use our combustion, and this is a very important concept to grasp, that when it comes down to how you combust, you have to take advantage of not just the mastery buff, which would be if you're using all of your instants. If you decide to combust and you're throwing out all your instants, and because obviously the pyroblast is going to crit, so you're like, okay, I can get out, if I get one crit for my fireball, then I can get out like 5 pyroblasts in my area of combustion. That's not what you want to be going for. You want to go for everything. If you want to use your cooldown, you want to use all the areas. That's 100% crit. You already know your fireblast is going to crit. If you're running Phoenix, you already know that's going to crit, so you want to hold off on that. I'm the kind of person that I want to combust with this, so I'm going to go up here, we'll combust early, hit up with another one, hit up with another one, maybe hit with that Scorch just to get that good damage, do it again, and so I just did 150k and still rocking with that Ignite, hitting good, hitting really strong, because I was able to put out 3 casted fireballs with 1 casted Scorch in that time frame, and those together make up 10% of my damage, and they were able to proc additional, like I would say that's probably 1 additional or 2 additional pyroblasts without wasting my fire blasts, and that's very important, because when your combustion ends, you're still taking advantage of that mastery, which is contributing to your Ignite. And if you see with that combustion, that Ignite hitting that good damage setup right there, you are also going to be able to get those instants out. So after your combustion ends, or close to where it's ending, that's when you throw out your instants, and you're even more painful. So that's definitely a good concept I want to throw out there, is make sure that you are casting as much as you can with combustion. And my last note to that is, some people might be like, well, when I'm combusting, I'm getting kicked, because it's obvious. You see Fire Mage coming out there full of red hot, nothing but anger and pain coming your way. They're going to try to kick that damage. They're like, hey, you got that poly, obviously I'm not combusting without CC. They're like, crap, they got that blind, they got that kidney, they got that Hodge. I need to try to stop some kind of damage. Maybe they can stop the rogue a little bit, but they're going to try to kick you as well. They're going to try to give you that mind freeze, they're going to give you that storm bolt, they're going to give you that defensive fear. So the people will be like, well, I get kicked on fire, half my combustion is wasted. Don't look at changing how you use your combustion when it's up. Look at when you're combusting, and look at your setup. Maybe you're not getting good cross CC. Maybe you're not getting those kicks ahead of time before you go for that setup, to where those kicks are available when you're putting out damage. When you're using combustion, you should think like an arcane mage. Everything you cast can be painful, but everything you cast when you get kicked can really screw you over. So think about it like that. If there's kicks available and you don't have good cross CC, maybe wait till next setup, or maybe communicate with your rogue or your warrior healer to try to get that cross CC, so when you combust, you're not getting stopped on that damage. And that's what's key. And you only need 4 or 5 seconds. You don't need a huge cross CC chain to get out those 3 or 4 casts that make combustion more worthwhile, to make it powerful enough to where you're putting out good damage outside of your combust, because you want to compare the two. If you're using combustion, you want to have good damage. So yeah, just reevaluate how you're doing your setups, and obviously if you notice you're getting stomped a lot, maybe just say, hey, you know what, this is not a good time to combust. I'm gonna hold it because that combust is a big deal now. Anyway, if there's any comments or questions regarding what I have to say or what I need to explain, I can go over it more in detail in a follow-on video. If you guys were questions about combustion, I would recommend that I would make a video for it. Don't watch my gameplay because I do make mistakes when I play. If you ever have any comments about your stat setup, perhaps maybe you're like, well, I'm noticing haste versatility is better, or I'm noticing mastery versatility is better for just raw damage output. Let me know. I'm noticing that, and I'm actually considering that myself. So if you guys have already done that, if you guys have already built your gear sets around that, or perhaps you just got some RNG drops and you're like, hey, I've happened to stack a lot of versatility and a lot of mastery, and I'm noticing this with this DPS, or I'm noticing I'm able to pull this off, let me know. Leave it down below, and I'm definitely curious to check that out, because again, new expansion pack, those micro changes are what's going to separate you and make you a better player and a more surmountable, insurmountable foe in the arenas. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.
One of the things you learn after years of dealing with drug people is that you can turn your back on a person, but never turn your back on a drug. Especially when it's waving a razor-sharp hunting knife in your eye.